Wominjeka everyone, Wominjeka meaning welcome. My name is Auntie Julianne and I'm an elder of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and in recognition of doing my welcome to country, I'd like to pay my respects to my elders past, present, future and any elders that were here today, and I would also like to welcome you all here today. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung tribe consists of three families, the Nevins, the Terricks and the Wandins, and I'm part of the Nevin family. The three families all descend from one woman called Annie Barratt, which makes us one big family. Annie Barratt is the youngest sister of William Barratt, a pioneer for Aboriginal people in the 19th century, fighting for equality and land rights. I'm here today to welcome you all to the land of my ancestors. We call the land within our tribal boundaries our country. The Kulin Nation, Kulin meaning man, is made up of 5 groups. They are the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, Boonwurrung, Tanarong, Wathaurong and Dja Dja Wurrung. And to give you an outline of the Wurundjeri country and the area we cover, Wurundjeri country extends from north to the Great Dividing Range, east to Mount Baw Baw, south to the Moolalic Creek and west to the Werribee River. We cover a diverse range of land from the mountains to the beach and everything in between. Many thousands of years ago, if an Aboriginal person from another tribe wanted to cross our boundary, they would have to sit at the boundary and wait for the Narragadah, which is the headman, or an elder to come past to give permission to cross. Traditional Aboriginal culture was highly territorial, and visitors risked a violent reprisal for crossing a tribal or clan boundary without this permission, and this is how a welcome to country originated in our culture. Traditionally, being welcomed onto country meant you respected Bunjil's law. Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle, is our creator, and Wah, the crow, is our protector. And as long as you looked after the country, you had access to our waterways and our land resources. And when you enter our country, we ask that you respect our resources, our fauna, flora and water, as they are very special to us. And when you are ready to leave, we ask that you leave it the way you found it.
have lots of council services that support our community. We support families with children, including health services for children and mums, vaccinations, playgroups, childcare, and kinder. We support young people in our community. Through events and activities, we have services that can support people with disability, older people, and carers and family of people with disability and older people. Our libraries support everyone in our community, help people learn new things, and are free to join. We support our community to have fun and be active through events and activities, sport, and recreation areas. We help look after our places and spaces, the environment, and local businesses. We have laws to keep people safe, to make sure buildings are safe, to make sure roads and footpaths are safe, to make sure our places and spaces are safe. We make sure everyone follows the law to keep our community safe and happy. Moonee Valley. It's a great place to live, work, and visit.
Wominjeka everyone, Wominjeka meaning welcome. My name is Auntie Julianne and I'm an out of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and in recognition of doing my welcome to country, I'd like to pay my respects to my elders past, present, future and any elders that were here today, and I would also like to welcome you all here today. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung tribe consists of 3 families, the Nevins, the Terricks and the Wandins, and I'm part of the Nevin family. The 3 families all descend from one woman called Annie Barratt, which makes us one big family. Annie Barratt is the youngest sister of William Barratt, a pioneer for Aboriginal people in the 19th century, fighting for equality and land rights. I'm here today to welcome you all to the land of my ancestors. We call the land within our tribal boundaries our country. The Kulin Nation, Kulin meaning man, is made up of 5 groups. They are the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, Boonwurrung, Tanarong, Wathaurong and Dja Dja Wurrung. And to give you an outline of the Wurundjeri country and the area we cover. Wurundjeri country extends from north to the Great Dividing Range, east to Mount Baw Baw, south to the Moolalic Creek and west to the Werribee River. We cover a diverse range of land from the mountains to the beach and everything in between. Many thousands of years ago, if an Aboriginal person from another tribe wanted to cross our boundary, They would have to sit at the boundary and wait for the Narragaeta, which is the headman, or an elder to come past to give permission to cross. Traditional Aboriginal culture was highly territorial, and visitors risked a violent reprisal for crossing a tribal or clan boundary without this permission, and this is how a welcome to country originated in our culture. Traditionally, being welcomed onto country meant you respected Bunjal's law. Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle, is our creator, and Wah the crow is our protector. And as long as you looked after the country, you had access to our waterways and our land resources. And when you enter our country, we ask that you respect our resources, our fauna, flora and water, as they are very special to us. And when you are ready to leave, we ask that you leave it the way you found it.
We have lots of council services that support our community. We support families with children, including health services for children and mums, vaccinations, playgroups, childcare, and kinder. We support young people in our community. Through events and activities, we have services that can support people with disability, older people, and carers and family of people with disability and older people. Our libraries support everyone in our community, help people learn new things, and are free to join. We support our community to have fun and be active through events and activities, sport, and recreation areas. We help look after our places and spaces, the environment, and local businesses. We have laws to keep people safe, to make sure buildings are safe, to make sure roads and footpaths are safe, to make sure our places and spaces are safe. We make sure everyone follows the law to keep our community safe and happy. Moonee Valley. It's a great place to live, work, and visit.
Welcome everyone to the Council meeting on the 26th of August 2025, which I now declare open at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to warmly welcome members of the public who have joined us tonight, as well as those watching online. As well as being live streamed, the video recording of this meeting will also be available on our website, so attendees in the gallery are advised that your presence may be recorded. I also ask that mobile phones be switched to silent mode during the meeting. A reminder as well to the public in the gallery that as per Governance Rule 75.1, personal video and audio recordings are not allowed. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Moonee Valley is located, the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respect to their spirits, ancestors, community members and elders past, present and emerging. We also extend this respect to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We now move to item 2 on the agenda, apologies and leave of absence. As all councillors are in attendance, I don't believe there are any apologies or leave of absence. However, I note that Councillor Theocharides is joining via Zoom this evening. We now move to item 3 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder that the minutes from the council meeting held on Tuesday the 22nd of July 2025 and Tuesday the 5th of August 2025 be confirmed? Moved Councillor Sypek, seconded Councillor Jones. Councillor Sypek, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Jones, would you like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is foreshadowing of conflicts of interest. Does any councillor wish to flag a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda this evening? No. The next item on the agenda is presentations. Councillors, I've got one presentation tonight, which I'll do first, and then I'll open it to the floor. So on the afternoon of the 6th of August, I attended Farnham Street Neighbourhood Learning Centre for the Inclusive Moonee Valley competition, along with Deputy Mayor Fran Cosgrove, Councillors Isa and Theocharides, as well as officers and members from the Disability Advisory Committee. Back in April, Council invited the community to respond to the question, show how Moonee Valley is inclusive for you. We received multiple impressive entries and congratulated Anthea for winning the Popular Choice Award and Mike as runner-up, and Deborah for winning the committee's Choice Award. Runners-up to the committee's Choice Award was Delwyn, who has generously donated her framed artwork to Council for display, which I'll now hold up. This is a really lovely piece of artwork that Delwyn has donated to Council for display. It's actually got the 9 wards of Moonee Valley, as well as, sorry, I'm speaking to the mic, as well as countries that our residents represent from all over the world. So thank you so much, Delwyn, and thank you all who participated. Councillors, are there any other presentations? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to report back on my attendance at the National Conference for Local Government, which I went to in Canberra on between the 25th and the 27th of June with a few colleagues around the table. It's an opportunity where councillors from all over the country come together, and this year there were over 1,000 delegates who attended. It was a really great opportunity for joint advocacy as a sector, as well as professional development and connecting with peers. We had quite a few sessions with federal MPs. It was great to hear their, priorities post-election, but also as a cohort, in speaking with them, we put through a really strong message about the need for sustainable funding models for the sector right across the country. There are also some really diverse views that we put to them, but that one was quite unanimous. I also attended a special interest session on safer roads, where we had a panel of experts from across the country and councillors asking questions. That was quite interesting. The kind of unambiguous information we received was that the answer to safer roads is lower speed limits, basically, in local communities. That got a mixed response from the delegates, but it was certainly food for thought. Not all roads, but particularly our local roads. That's what the evidence tells us works best. And again, there was a lot of advocacy in that session about getting more predictable funding sources for infrastructure for roads. So they were, among many other things, and I don't want to repeat what my colleagues mentioned last meeting, so they were some of my takeaways. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Any other presentations tonight? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly talk about the Ascot Vale Library reopening. So the official opening of Ascot Vale Library occurred on Friday the 22nd of August, celebrated by a well-attended ceremony featuring the Mayor, of course, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Jones, the Honourable Nick Stakos, Minister for Local Government and Consumer Affairs, the Honourable Danny Pearson, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth and Jobs and the Member for Essendon, Angela Savage, the CEO of Public Libraries Victoria, and community members who gathered to mark the occasion. The event included speeches that emphasised the library's role in supporting lifelong learning, literacy and community engagement, as well as ribbon cutting that symbolised a fresh chapter for the local area. The new library offers a bright, modern space with extensive books, digital resources, quiet study areas, and an amazing children's zone, and flexible meeting rooms all designed to foster creativity, social connection, and accessibility for people of all ages. The opening showcased the collaborative efforts of council staff and highlighted the library's value as a dynamic hub for learning, culture, and community enrichment in Ascot Vale. And I'd also just like to shout out to all of the community members going back multiple decades who fought to have a library there in the first place and to keep it there to the point that it's an amazing community asset at the moment. And since the first unofficial opening, there's been close to 6,000 people come through the doors already, which is amazing. And community libraries like ours generate a community benefit of over $6 for every $1 spent, which is terrific. So it was a terrific event, and it's a great community asset. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to make a presentation? Councillor Theocrides.
Thank you, Mayor. So my presentation is the August highlights of the Clock Tower Centre. August saw the Clock Tower Centre present the third instalment in its acclaimed First Nations centred series featuring Echoes of the Earth by the Maylene Yinar Trio. This evocative performance celebrated Indigenous heritage through music, storytelling and cultural artistry, offering audiences a deep and resonant connection to country. The show formed part of the Centre's ongoing commitment to honouring First Nations voices and fostering understanding within the broader community, further enriching Moonee Valley's cultural landscape. The Clock Centre also launched the second series of its well-loved morning music program. The series began with a vibrant opening show, Wish Upon the Star, the Disney songbook, which paid a tribute to iconic Disney classics from the past century. And the event drew a strong community response with more than 200 patrons in attendance, reflecting the program's ongoing popularity and local appreciation. This 5-show series also celebrates the Beach Boys, Dame Julie Andrews, UK icon Cilla Black and more, and the morning music program continues to foster cultural engagement and social connection within the community through accessible, high quality entertainment. So I encourage everyone to look out for the timetable or the show program for September. That will be up on the Clocktail website, Clocktail Centre website, to check out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Theocrates. Any other councillor have a presentation? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to touch on the Incinerator Gallery and what goes on in August. So I feel like I have to start with the Playground Project Melbourne, which has been a massive hit. It's been open between the 28th of June to the 12th of October and is an interactive international travelling exhibition with a playground takeover. It explores a unique chapter of late 19th century to early 21st century art, design, urbanism and activism, and strives to inspire local audiences, children, students, city planners, artists and designers to imagine a bright and brilliant future to play and playground design. Unlike any other exhibition, young visitors are invited to climb, crawl, fall and imagine their way through a whimsical and colourful exhibition display and interact with the magical playgrounds that sit at the heart of this project and take over the Incinerator Gallery's indoor and outdoor spaces. The reviews have been great so far, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out or you want to go again, you still have plenty of time. In addition to this, in August, the Incinerator Gallery also hosted a range of exhibitions and community events, including the Future Forms Group Sculpture Show and also the annual First Nations Contemporary Exhibition.
Great, thanks, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to present? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to thank staff and councillors who participated in the long walk on the 18th of August, so Monday of last week. It was a great turnout from the staff and really shows the commitment of the organisation to reconciliation. The long walks, obviously it was a short long walk, but obviously draws on Michael Long's 2004 walk from Melbourne to Canberra, and we've had a number of organisations in Moonee Valley, including Progress Kindergarten as well, organised a short long walk this year, and I know football clubs have often organised similar walks. And so to see that commitment across the community and across a range of different organisations in the community is really terrific to see. And so to thank the Long Walk organisation for supplying all staff with some wonderful beanies on the day, certainly needed them, it was quite chilly, and Uncle Perry Wandon, who had a smoking ceremony at the Jering Hub at the end of our walk from the Civic Centre down to the Jering Hub. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Councillor Isa. And also note, I think Essendon Fields did a long walk earlier in the year as well. Great. The next item on the agenda is petitions and joint letters. Item 6.1, petition, is rename part of Aspen Street, Moonee Ponds. Who would like to table it? Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. A petition has been received containing 100 signatures from the local community requesting the renaming of 2 of the 3 sections of Aspen Street in Moonee Ponds, specifically the Everidge Street side to Dame Edna Street and the Mount Alexander Road side to Sir Les Patterson Lane. This suggested renaming aims to clear up ongoing confusion caused by the street's 3 segments, which were created by the development of Mason Square and Moonee Ponds Central. The petition also suggests naming the walkway from Coles between Homer Street and Hall Street as Barry Humphries Walk to aid with wayfinding. The petition contends that renaming to honour Barry Humphries AC CBE also provides an opportunity to celebrate an important part of Moonee Ponds' cultural identity and would strengthen the connection with Dame Edna and Sir Les Patterson, paying tribute to these internationally beloved figures.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. In accordance with Governance Rule 62.5, I refer the petition to the CEO for consideration. Councillors, do we have any other petitions or joint letters? If not, we will now come to question time. And we have 6 questions this evening. The first 2 questions are from Russell McIntosh, who is joining us this evening in the gallery. Russell, please come to the lectern and ask your first pre-submitted question.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. A highball stadium was listed as a priority project in the last council term. However, this seems to have disappeared from all council meeting agendas. Can council inform the community of when it is committing to build the highball facility, when construction will start, and inform us of the deep discussions in place with state and federal members to obtain the appropriate funding for this project?
Thank you, Russell. I refer to the CEO, Helen Swede, to respond.
Thank you, Russell. Through the Mayor, council officers are currently assessing the feasibility of a number of potential locations for the development of a highball stadium, and will be reporting back to the council on this matter in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Russell, please ask your second pre-submitted question.
Thank you. Are council aware that not only have no new courts been built in Moonee Valley in 30 years, but the standard of the courts provided through schools locally are barely fit to train on, let alone play matches on?
Thank you, Russell. I refer to the CEO, Helen Swede, to respond.
Thank you, Russell. Through the Mayor, thank you for this information, Russell, also for conveying your views on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. The next two questions are from Ray Bird, who is not joining us this evening. So on behalf of Ray, question 3 reads, please describe the hydrology risk management assessments undertaken prior to MVCC upgrading the stormwater drainage to the laneway running parallel to Nagavino and Stewart Streets this March. Thank you, Ray. I refer to the CEO, Helen Swede, to respond. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, Ray. Through the Mayor, water ponding had previously been identified between Gavino Street and Stewart Street in Moonee Ponds. To ensure compliance with this road management plan, Council installed additional drainage pits and pipes earlier this year to capture surface water runoff and redirect it into the existing underground drainage network. A hydrological assessment was not required in this instance, as the surface flows would have naturally traveled down the laneway and entered the drainage system further downstream. Given the observed ponding and in line with its obligations, Council addressed the issue by intercepting and managing the runoff further upstream within the network. As previously advised, Melbourne is currently undergoing extensive flood modelling. While this work is still in progress, it will inform future hydrological risk assessments and help prioritize the renewal and upgrades of critical drainage infrastructure to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. The next question from Ray reads, please describe the MVCC risk management response to repeated flood events. How does MVCC aim to capture the increase in hydrological flow volumes with the increase in residential developments and the increasing risk of impact on residents downstream? Please answer in terms of hydrology, not fixed assets. I refer to the CEO, Helen Swede, to respond.
Thank you, Ray. Through the Mayor, the drainage system for all new developments is required to be designed to match pre-development runoff rates. This ensures that the development does not have an impact on the existing drainage network. An example of this is a development application that is in close proximity to Gavino Street and Stewart Street, the Moonee Valley Racecourse. The development has been designed and required to incorporate measures such as on-site detention, wetland treatment, and the capture and reuse of treated water to ensure that the downstream drainage network can cater for the anticipated water flows. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. The final two questions are from Peter Robinson, who is not joining us this evening. So on behalf of Peter, question 5 reads, is MVCC spending money on facilities or providing funds to state-owned public housing infrastructure? If so, why? Thank you, Peter. I refer to the CEO, Helen Swede, to respond.
Thank you, Peter. Through the Mayor, No, Moody Valley City Council is not spending its funds on building public housing infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Peter's second and final question reads, is rates charged on public housing dwellings and land? If so, how much revenue is raised in MVCC? I refer to the CEO, Helen Swee, to respond.
Thank you, Peter. Susan Mayer. Yes, public housing dwellings are charged rates based on the combined value of land and dwellings. The total raised for the 2025-26 year is just under $3.527 million, which includes the general rates, municipal charges, and the waste charges. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. The next item on the agenda is reports from delegates. Councillors, do we have any reports as delegates? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier in the month, I attended the Metropolitan Transport Forum on behalf of Council. There was a very interesting presentation by Professor Jago Dodson of RMIT. And this was, and wait for the acronym, this was around what's known as the Vampire Index, which is a vulnerability indice of mortgage, petrol, inflation risk, and expenditure. So basically it was a presentation that looks at oil price and the impacts that has on vulnerability and Australian cities. One of the key takeaways was that really Australia has only 27 days of liquid fuel available if we were to stop imports. And what sort of jumped out was the importance of actions that Council's taking, like the electrification of our council fleet and works equipment, also through to support for electric vehicles and building support, and the extent that this has a positive and will have a positive impact on community resilience and not just emissions reduction, cost savings, or local health benefits. So that was an important and often overlooked part of the equation. There was also some interesting statistics and takeaways on increasing dwelling density in our suburbs, and how, while we go about doing that, we don't really tackle an increase in a car dependency. So car dependency doesn't really move as our cities get denser, so the trips still remain as well. So there's probably a bit of work there for ourselves and state government in particular in the coming years. They were probably the key takeaways. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne. Do any other councillors wish to report back? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Phil Byrne and myself attended the Melbourne Showgrounds Community Consultative Group on the 7th of August. This is a revived community consultative group that has members from the Showgrounds, the VRC, and City of Melbourne and Moonee Valley, where we can share concerns that have been raised with us by the community about the impacts of events and questions to continually improve issues such as parking, noise, transport. So at this last particular meeting, we talked about the upcoming show. We reiterated our advocacy as a council for free public transport to the show is an ongoing position of council, where the more people who are on public transport, obviously the fewer parking impacts we will have around Ascot Vale and Flemington. But we also talked about the new permits that are available for residents in the major events area, and we're hoping that they are, fingers crossed, available for people before the show starts, and that should help to make life a little bit easier for residents who live around what's a terrific entertainment precinct, but with considerable amenity issues, and we're aware of that and continually working with City of Melbourne and the show to try to improve those. The other interesting thing was I often get complaints about, and I know Councillor Phil Byrne probably gets concerns raised too about the Coles, parking in the Coles showground precinct there. And just to update people that City of Melbourne is in the process of finalising an agreement there so that hopefully that issue will be reduced in this upcoming show season. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do any other councillors wish to report back? If not, we now move on to item 9, reports. And the first report is item 9.1, MV/737/2012/B, 23A Gladstone Street, Moonee Ponds. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is shown on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Can you read the amendment, please?
Yes, so the officer's recommendation, but at condition 22, to be modified to read point A, Monday 6 a.m. to 9 p.m, B, Tuesday 7 a.m. to 9 p.m, C, Wednesday 6 a.m. to 9 p.m, D, Thursday 6 a.m. to 10 p.m, E, Friday to Saturday 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m, F, Sunday 7 a.m. to 9 p.m, and the rest as per the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. I'll also just mention underneath condition 22 modified to read, you didn't read out that first sentence. Could you just read that out so the governance can double check that?
The use approved by this permit may only operate as follows, and then the points that I read.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Cosgrove, would you like to speak to the item, to the motion?
Thank you. So this is a permit for extending the operating hours of a cafe in Moonee Ponds. It's near the Woolworths site in Moonee Ponds, which is quite well known, and the cafe is in an old church. It's a beautiful use of that space, but it's a general. It's also a general residential zone, and along the back of the church, that's a cafe, there are nine residences. So the amendment is to try to strike a balance. I think the original request was for it to be until 12 a.m. or something of the like. So this is to try to get the right balance by allowing the cafe to operate slightly longer. I think it'll be an hour additional in the morning, and about an hour additional, half an hour more Thursday, extra hour in the evenings on Friday and Saturday. To the original application, there were 18 objections, which is why it has come to us, and they were largely from the residents who live at the back of the cafe and those who live around it. So it is a really sensitive interface between the two, and I'm hoping that this will be a good compromise for both the business and the residents.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, it's a pretty interesting part of the world at this site with the Woolworths over the road and the car park, and a lot of activity and a lot of busyness. But just noting the concerns that were raised in the objections are concerns that are being raised from people that are probably used to a fair bit of that activity and busyness anyway. And I just think that the amendment just goes that little bit further than the officer's recommendation in trying to address those concerns raised in the objections. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
You had it on. Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm likely to support this application, but I do feel that sometimes we do try to squeeze businesses perhaps more than what we need to. I understand that there's concerns, but my understanding was that the original amendment was saying that the current hours are from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Monday to Sunday, and they wanted them changed to 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. midnight, Monday to Sunday. And then from there, they worked to something through the consultation meeting, to something that was much more reasonable. Monday 6 a.m. till 10, Tuesday 7 till 9, Wednesday and Thursday 6 till 10, Friday to Sunday 6 a.m. till 10:30. And then we've gone, and then there's been the officer's recommendation, and now we've gone to tighten it again, which obviously as councillors we can do, and but I do wonder how much we're, I suppose, changing really minute details against what the officer's recommendation is. We talk so much about being supportive to our small businesses, our local businesses. This is in a great spot in Moonee Ponds, and a business that really wants to thrive. And I think that, as I said, I'm likely to support it because it's still an extension of their hours. But I think that we just need to be really mindful of doing this because it might deter future applicants down the track when they want to look to expand their business. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Sypek?
Thank you, Mayor. I remember this cafe many years ago when they put their application in, and I was sort of 50-50 on it whether it was going to work or not, and I thought it might have been, probably not the right place to have a cafe because it was just that little bit out of the way. But you know what? It's come up trumps. It's come up a really good little place. Now, we're only talking here a cafe. We're not talking here a nightclub where there's going to be loud music. I mean, this is just going to be people having dinner there, probably in a second sitting. And if on a Sunday at 9 o'clock, they're going to be all rushed out of there, I really don't see that much concern from 9:30 from 9 o'clock till 10:30 for that 1.5 hours extra. People just sitting there having a glass of wine and having a steak and chips, or having a parmigiana there, because that's about the extent of the noise. There's going to be no loud music. It's just going to be people enjoying Moonee Ponds. So for me, I would have been happy with the officer's recommendation, and I'm still undetermined, and I'm still going to wait to see what other comments my colleagues might have on this.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Isa?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, there are a couple of considerations here for me. Obviously, the close proximity of residents is a key consideration, and I'm comfortable with the amendment that's been put forward that maintains the hours for Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m, which is the current operating hours. So I think there's some logic and consistency to say, well, let's just maintain status quo for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then extending those for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then pulling it back on Sunday, which is a common practice amongst our venues, to recognise that Sunday evenings have some residential amenity issues as well. But the other issue that's, I think, it may be the first application we've had since the liquor licensing has changed to sort of remove council from having any real... it's the removal of clause 1307 and 52 that's connected to 5227 around council's permits for or involvement in having a planning permit that's connected to liquor licensing is probably the easiest way I can say it. And so we don't have any control anymore over that. That's all sits with the VCGLR, and I note that the current liquor licence is till 9 p.m. For all days of the week at this particular premises. And so this is really the only point at which we can say where we think that should sit. And so again, I'm comfortable with saying that continuing status quo, Monday to Wednesday and Sunday, but relaxing that for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, recognising that this particular hospitality premises is albeit at the residential end, but is within a wider activity centre, so relaxing things there. I think this strikes the right balance. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak on this one? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been thinking a lot about this motion and the officer's recommendation and the amendment. I won't be supporting the amendment, but I would also like to foreshadow that I will be moving the officer's recommendation should the amendment not pass. I think for me, what's happened here is we've seen an initial application that's had many objections to it. We've had the business owner and residents come around the table and come to an agreement that has been recommended by officers of the council, the staff that we employ to make these recommendations for us based on the weight of the evidence available to them. I look at where we're heading in the future and the number of residences that the state government's expecting us to put into Moonee Valley in different areas, including Moonee Ponds, and a lot of the justification there is that people want to live near cafes, restaurants. They want to live in those areas and enjoy the amenities that come with them. So we need to provide them with those amenities, and I feel like being too onerous as a council on hours and fiddling around the edges is not necessarily where we should be prioritising our focus going forward. So I support the office recommendation. I'll be voting against these slight amendments, and I'd encourage all other councillors around the table to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Isa.
Sorry, Mayor, could I just ask a point of clarification? Councillor Jones mentioned that objectors and the applicant had come to an agreement. Could I just clarify, please, through you to the planning manager of city, or through you, Mayor, as to whether that was the case? Thank you.
Yeah, the manager city development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. There was no solid agreement as to my understanding. There was discussion at the consultation meeting, and the applicant put forward certain changes during the consultation meeting. And then after that, they amended those proposed times even more. And those times are the ones that have been reflected in the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Manager of City Development. Councillor Isa.
Sorry, Mayor, if I could just ask another question. There was a similar application, I think it's at 109 Pascoe Vale Road, that came through the chamber some time ago, and the hours through the chamber, I can't remember what they were, but I think they were around 9, 10 or 11 p.m. Could I just clarify, I think that then went to VCAT. Could I clarify, please, what the outcome of the VCAT matter was with respect to that similar application? Thanks.
Thank you, CEO.
Yes, Manager City Development. Not sure you have the information on hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess we're talking about the Convoy site, Councillor Isa. It's correct that it came to the chamber, and the chamber, the council approved certain times, and some of the objectors appealed that decision to VCAT. VCAT amended some of those operating times. I can look them up for you if you wish, but they were slightly less than what was initially included. What VCAT also did impose was a patron management plan as well as a noise study, which is included in this permit already. So that was added to the permit to make sure that the operation is better managed. There was also a specific timing control to say that the outside areas be closed earlier for patrons to reduce the noise. This particular application before council tonight doesn't have a very large external area, so it may not be as suitable to do something like that, but it is a possibility. But that was one of the specifics that was brought in. The outside area closed about 2 hours or so earlier than the rest of the building. Thanks.
Thank you, Manager, City Development. Would any other council like to speak on the item? No. Councillor Cosgrove, would you like a right of reply?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, colleagues, for your thoughts. It is a really tricky one, I agree. It's right on the interface of Koorinova Core Activity Centre, but it also is in the general residential zone with really, that's all housing from there onwards pretty much, and it's surrounded by housing. It's got housing on the back of the cafe, was part of the original development. In terms of kind of tinkering around the edges, I guess I was, for the revised times that the applicant put forward and the concerns that objectors raised about noise and amenity and well, I guess what struck me, so on a Wednesday night, for a business to be able to be open till 10, operating, and then to have pack down, and then to get to wash all your pots and pans, pack down the kitchen, empty your bottles potentially. As someone who's worked in hospitality, it's not when you kick out the patrons that you wrap up. It goes on quite a bit longer, and it's not always quiet. I think that's a relationship that you always have to manage when you're a business and when you're a homeowner living near a business. But I just think to allow, I don't feel it would be responsible to let them just have it open till 10 on a Wednesday night, on a Monday night, on a Wednesday night, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday maybe. Well, certainly Friday, Saturday, Thursday maybe, that's kind of part of that weekend. But that hence my amendment to bring it back to 9 p.m. I just think that strikes a better balance of allowing people to get a full night's sleep before bed, but also to have a pretty thriving
20 seconds left, Councillor.
Opportunity to have a dinner business. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Fran Cosgrove, Councillor Isa, Councillor Adams. All those against? Councillor John Barnes, Councillor Jones, Councillor Sypek. Sorry, I forgot about Councillor Theocrides. Sorry, can you... did she vote? Okay, so Councillor Theocrides had her hand up to vote in favour. So, and I acknowledge Councillor Sypek voted against with Councillor Jones and Councillor Barnes. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, councillors. The next report is item 9.2, MV/89/2025, 22 Hampton Road, Essendon. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is shown on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Theocrides.
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Theocrides, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Thanks, Mayor. In support of the officer's recommendation, and just noting that for this particular permit we had 2 objectors, I believe, and some of the reasons, or the couple of the reasons, were with regards to overshadowing and overlooking. But when I looked into the endorsement conditions, if the permit was approved at council, the conditions that would be endorsed for this particular development, in particular, a reduction in the overall building height, which included any modifications. And that was basically included as revision C, dated the 4th of July. So with a couple of other conditions that were also mentioned in the endorsement conditions, I was quite satisfied that any sort of issues raised with objectors were taken into consideration, and with those revisions, I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Theocrides. Councillor Philburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I also support the officer's recommendation. These sites are a little bit interesting, and they're a mixed-use site. The arrangements of lots is pretty challenging, long and skinny, all in different ownership. But I think this is the type of, we're really restricted in the type of renewal in these sorts of blocks. I think it's reasonably complementary to the block next door as well, and we get another house in, and we keep a shop as well. And I think just the other thing to point out, also challenging in terms of the requirements around sort of site coverage that you'd ordinarily meet are difficult to meet on those sites, but they're not met with the current arrangements as well. So yeah, I think on the balance of everything, the recommendation by officers and the proposed permit conditions, yeah, fully support. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Philburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Philburn, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Isa, Councillor Jones, Councillor Theocrides, Councillor Adams. All those against? Councillor Barnes and Councillor Sypek. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, councillors. The next report is item 9.3, endorsement of the draft road management plan 2025 to 29 for community consultation. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is shown on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to move that Council resolves to A, endorse the draft road management plan 2025 to 2029 attachment 2 with the following changes in Appendix 1 for community consultation over a 4-week period. 1, intervention levels for step to be greater than 15 millimetres for both concrete and asphalt pathway hazards. 2, intervention levels for cracks to be greater than 10 millimetres for both concrete and asphalt pathway hazards. 3, intervention levels for pothole to be greater than 15 millimetres deep for asphalt pathway hazard, diameter remain the same. B, receive a report following the community consultation for the adoption of the Road Management Plan 2025 to 2029 prior to the 31st of October 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Councillor Samantha Byrne, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I will. Councillors are responsible for approximately 410 kilometres of road and 855 kilometres of footpaths in Moonee Valley. And these assets are Council's most heavily used and are fundamental enablers of transport and movement around the municipality. The Draft Road Management Plan 2025 to 29 provides a framework for Council to manage safety hazards or defects in the roads, footpaths and related assets, and will replace Council's current plan, the Road Management Plan 2021 to 2024. Now, what we have here has been put together is a really good, I think, attempt for where we need to be. It's something that we have to do. However, I was very concerned with the decrease in service level across 3 things that I find to be incredibly important, which are where the amendments that I've put up on the screen come through. I don't think that we should be lowering our service level for these particular things. I'm very mindful of the effects that this will have on our community. I understand that this is just for a draft to go out to the community, and so even if this amendment doesn't get up, the community might tell us otherwise, but I feel that putting it in now is the right time to do it. Now, I do want to make note that if you look, there were there is a change register which you can find online, and there are 16 changes, of which it speaks about whether there's resourcing implications or not. And these were the ones that came up with that it would actually reduce our resources implications. Now, I'm mindful that that if these amendments weren't to go ahead. Now, I'm mindful that if we're to then put these back in, it would obviously go back to status quo, and there will be an effect on that. But we will be getting a report back in which the officers can, and I don't have the exact wording of what it was called, sorry, it's missed my mind, but effectively the management of how this would be done through operationals. So I'd prefer to put it in now, put it out for consultation with these changes, and see what the officers can work through, as opposed to doing it in October. I hope that makes sense. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot to like about the draft road management plan, and obviously roads and footpaths are incredibly important to our residents. I can't speak for other councillors around the table, but it's certainly one of the issues I hear about a lot, and one that I'm often talking about and passing on information when I hear from residents. I think a lot of what has been proposed in the original draft of the plan, including response times and the proactiveness, is worthy of discussion and worthy of putting out there as well. But for me, it's the I've had to I've seen the aftermath of people falling on a crack on the footpath and falling in a foot when they they're falling over on a footpath and things like that. And I just think 15 mil or may seem like, the difference between 15 and 20 mil may seem like a small deal to some people, but it can be a really big deal to a lot of our community. And I think that putting it out for consultation, somewhat maintaining the status quo, as Councillor Samantha Byrne has said, I think can be a good part of a worthy part of the discussion with the community, and we'll see what the report comes back with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Barnes.
I think this is a great amendment, Mayor and Councillor Samantha Byrne, and echo Councillor Jones's concerns. My beautiful mother-in-law tripped over a slight crack in the footpath, so I reckon it's a great idea to put it out to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, this is a real tricky one, I think. I certainly like the intent of the amendment. I don't think I'll support it. I like where the officers' report and recommendations land. I discount things like how we benchmark against other councils. And I know other councils have 20 and we're 15, and for me that's not, being out of sync is not a reason to adopt 20, but the thing that I just can't get sort of past when I look at the officers' report is the fact that our council insurers are satisfied with the 20 mil. That's a bit I sort of can't get past, and the other thing which I'm sort of struggling with is around with budgets, and you squeeze your balloon somewhere and it's going to bulge out somewhere else, is whether there would be any impact in the other recommendations in the officers' report about a much more proactive regime of inspection. And I also feel from looking at some of the insurance claims that it was things such as it was more along the lines of the lack of inspection and the lack of proactive inspection where council started to get into trouble on these things, rather than the difference between the 15 and the 20. Having said that, I mean, I sort of like the idea of sort of keeping it status quo, and if we could sort of easily and comfortably do both, I think that would be great. I'm a little bit, I guess, the other way around. I'd probably prefer to see what comes back from the community. And I do find it hard to sort of move past the views of council's insurer as to risk. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Sypek.
I take your point, Councillor Byrne, but I don't think there's anybody in Australia that likes insurance companies and takes notice of what they say, especially with cars and all that. But look, if a footpath is uneven by 10 mil and someone trips and causes them serious damage, what are we as a council going to say? Oh, no, sorry, it's not more than 15 mil. It's less than 20 mils. No, a trip's a trip. One of the main things that we as councils do is we look after the local roads and the local footpaths. Now, if we have an uneven footpath, now an elderly person with a Zephyr frame, they're going to get stuck on even on 10 mils, let alone 20. That's the way I'm thinking here, and I think once this goes out to the community, I think you're going to get a lot of community feedback, because we have a lot of elderly people who like to have their walks, and some of them, have seen footpaths around. I've seen them as well too. I've even tripped on some, and they weren't 20 mil. So I tend to think that we as a council, even if we have to shave 5 mils off, we should shave 5 mils off, because footpaths are supposed to be even, not uneven. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak on this item? Councillor Theocrides.
Thank you, Mayor. I too, when this report, the draft road management plan, was brought to councillors over over a couple of strategic briefings, I found myself very tied in my views in this. Obviously, wanting to protect the residents of the community in terms of trips and falls and whatnot, the elderly and people with disabilities and whatnot. And the other side of me also looks at the fact that in the report, the proactive investigations was really, really low, in terms of how many proactive investigations that council does. And that really didn't sit well with me, because even though we might set the level at 15 mil, if we're not going out and proactively investigating footpaths, then it doesn't matter what we set the millimetres at. We're just not going to be going out and looking and checking for that until something does happen or someone does report it. So I feel, while I echo the concerns of my colleagues with regards to the increase of the 5 mil, I also am comforted to know that this is going out for consultation to the community to see what community comes back with. But I'm also extremely comfortable, or more comfortable, knowing that by going with the officer's recommendation, the money that we can save with regards to that will mean that we can put that in another area, which means more proactive investigations, which means that we've got more officers going out there and looking at footpaths and ensuring that footpaths are compliant. So that's where my thinking is for this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Theocrides. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to foreshadow the officer's recommendation should this alternative motion not be successful. Look, I really understand the intent of the motion that's been put forward in terms of some hesitancy to change what seem like the levels that we've been acting on, and I can understand the reticence or hesitancy and concern about changing that. I think, though, what we've got, the bigger picture here is that we're trying to, what the purpose of the policy is all about reducing risk and improving safety for our road and footpath users. And that what the policy's tried to do is to really identify where our actions are best directed to make sure that we, on the basis of all evidence and of past experience with insurance claims and injury, to put all that evidence together and work out how we can best protect our residents from hazards. And so I think we really need to listen to the experts, and they may be disliked insurance companies in this case, but the insurance companies are actually, they don't want people to get injured either, just like we don't. And so if they are saying to us that the best way to protect against people being injured is to increase the frequency of checks and to improve those other measures, that it's not these measures of the 5 mil difference, that's not where the risk lies. The risk lies in council not acting soon enough on complaints. So a really important part of this is reducing the time taken to act on concerns. And the risk lies in not doing checks frequently enough. And so this policy improves redirects that focus to the parts, or to the actions of the organisation that will actually make a difference. And I think that we need to listen to that evidence and explain that to residents. We have a role in really helping our residents to understand that that's why these recommendations have been put forward to us.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Byrne. Right of reply. Thanks, Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I will have a right of reply if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
I appreciate the debate around the table, but I think one thing that we need to be, that is very clear in my mind, is that the difference between 15 millimetres and 20 millimetres, if that is what our intervention level is going to change to, that will result in an increase of falls and accidents and an increased trip hazard to our residents. And the people that it will affect the most will be the people that are more vulnerable. And the impact that this can have on their quality of life can be quite devastating. And I don't feel comfortable sitting around this chamber as a decision maker and reducing that number. I cannot do it. The pain that people will go through, the pain that people do go through already with falls, and we're just going to, effectively it will increase if these numbers change, can be quite disastrous for the person involved, for the families who will then become carers, for so many different things. Now, we speak about budget. Well, maybe there needs to be more budget allocated. I completely agree with what was said about it's reducing risk and improving safety. That's exactly what I want to do with this motion. I really want to improve the safety of our most vulnerable in the community. And if this doesn't get up, I note that a motion has been foreshadowed, but it will be very interesting to hear what the community has to say, knowing when this goes up for consultation. I'm looking forward to it coming back into the chamber prior to the end of October. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Barnes, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Jones, Councillor Sypek. All those against? Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Isa, Councillor Theocrides, Councillor Adams. I declare that motion lost. Councillor Isa, you foreshadowed a motion.
Thanks, but I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
I won't reiterate the debate we've just had, but I will just pick up on a point that was made just in the closing there, which was a statement that changes to the standard will result in increase in falls. And I just wanted to make it really clear that we don't have anything before us that would make that case. And in fact, everything we have before us is counter to that. That the MAV, our insurance companies and other municipalities have higher levels of intervention, that we will still be, that at 20 millimetres we're still leading the way. It's still a level of intervention that's not matched by other municipalities, and for some, I think for some of those changes it's equal to. So I just wanted to make it, felt the need to be really clear that in supporting the officer's recommendation, we are reducing risk to our community through improved service levels, and that there's no that it's actually quite misleading to say, I feel that the changes being made through this policy would increase the number of injuries in our community. And I didn't call a point of order on that, Mayor, but I do think that was a misleading point to make.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Cosgrove, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I do think on the whole, like, the officer's recommendation provides us with a safer road system. I know we've been talking a lot about intervention levels, but the other changes are proactive, reducing the proactive inspection time frame and increasing the amount of proactive inspections, reducing our response time. So emergency repair responses will be reduced from 10 days to 2 days. And it's a really, I guess we've voted on the last one, but I understand the intent of the other one about wanting to minimise all possible risk, but I think there's so many elements that are captured in this road management plan, and I'm confident that the officer's recommendation will be an improvement on what we've got, even though there's a change in that intervention level. So happy to support the officer's recommendation, and glad to see the increase in our responsivity to these things. It's one thing to identify them, but the time it takes to get them fixed is equally, if not more important, and that's what our insurer is saying as well. So yes, happy to support this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Would any other councillor like to speak on the item? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mayor. I did support the amendment, and I'm still trying to get around how does increasing the height from 15 to 20 mils reduce risk? I mean, if we went down to 10, I could say I agree with that it reduces risk. But when you're increasing the gap to 20 mils, how does that reduce the risk? Logic must prevail here. You're increasing the height of the discrepancy of footpaths. Now, once again, I'll say, then, like Councillor Burns said, this is going to affect, people with disabilities, people, who do walk and sometimes they can't see it, like someone with poor eyesight. Someone with poor eyesight who's quite able doesn't see a 20 mil gap, he's going to trip. If he sees a 10 mil gap, he's going to trip. The whole idea of this should be not about whether it's 15 mils or 20 mils. The whole idea that us as a council should be doing is, once again, being more proactive and doing more thorough inspections, and also letting the community know that if they do see discrepancy of the footpaths in heights, give us a call, send it on photo, snap and chat, and send the councillor an email, send our officers an email. That's what we should be promoting, not promoting to increase it to 20 mils, because look, the only winners out of this is going to be the insurance company, no one else. That's who's going to win here.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Philburn.
Generally, insurance companies win when they have to pay out less out of their pool. And I think, the risk here is the risk is reduced because you're checking more often and you're acting faster. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Philburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Isa, would you like a right of reply? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Philburn, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Isa, Councillor Jones, Councillor Theocrides, Councillor Adams. All those against? Councillor Barnes, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Sypek. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, councillors. The next report is item 9.4, endorsement of the draft domestic animal management plan for community consultation. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Isa?
Move the officer's recommendation, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
This is a really important plan, the domestic animal management plan. And I thank officers for putting this together to go out for consultation, and I really look forward to seeing whether it hits the right mark for our community. Some points to draw out of it are that this isn't, as with many of our plans, this isn't an exhaustive list of everything that we do with respect to animal management. This is actually identifying some priorities and some focus areas for the next 4 years, but it may be that in feedback to us, residents point to things that they would think that they might like to see higher up the list. So if you are looking at, if residents are looking at this particular plan but think that something else needs to be mentioned, it may be that that's something that we could include in this priority list. I was really pleased to see in this something that came to me quite a bit in the last council term, which was the processes in which barking dog complaints are managed. And one of the priorities that we've identified in this plan, or that staff have identified in this plan, is some improvement to the way that process is communicated, because the enforcement process is quite protracted and difficult and needs to provide fairness on both sides of the complaint. But the way in which we communicate that to residents has certainly been tricky for people to understand in the past, so I'm really pleased to see that as an action item. One of the other things that's really evident in this plan is the estimate of animals, dogs and cats that we think are not registered. It's an estimate only, because obviously we don't know whether an animal, we don't know the extent to which animals exist in our community unregistered, by virtue of the fact that they're not registered, but we estimate that it's quite high, and a priority of this plan is to keep trying to provide incentives and to make it easy for people to register their cats and dogs, because it means that we know how many animals we have in the community, and we can rehome them should anything happen, should they be found. So it's a really important part of animal safety and animal care. One of the other interesting points here, and it's been a debate that's been held across a number of other municipalities, all of whom have to do their animal management plans like we do, which is the rate of animals which are unfortunately not rehomed, not reunited, but are unfortunately euthanased, and our rates are 7% at the moment. I'd probably like them to be 0, so but 7% is quite low. It's something that I'm hoping that we can continue to drive down to 0. I know it's something that people may have views about. Another thing that I'm interested in whether people comment on is that cat curfews are a topic of conversation amongst a range of councils, and we do actually have the we've got the tools, or we've got in place restrictions on cats between sunset and sunrise, in that cats are meant to be on their premises between overnight. We haven't got as a focal area for the management plan any particular actions around that, but it is something that's often raised with me in terms of should we be doing more education around that. It's something that helps protect wildlife, helps protect our biodiversity, and also keeps cats from being injured and lost. So I'm interested to see whether that's something that's identified by the community as an area for more action. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly wanted to reiterate a couple of the points that my colleague Councillor Isa made, because I think they're important. I think the focus areas in the draft domestic animal management plan are important ones. Registration, education around registration. I knew that, obviously anecdotally that there were more cats and dogs out there in the community than were actually registered, but I must admit I was shocked by how high the lack of estimated registration was, especially with respect to cats. Now, obviously, the data there is a little bit out of date, but I imagine hopefully some of the previous education stuff's work, but we need to continue there, because I think registration is important, and educating around the value of what registration can bring is a good way to do that, or at least hopefully that's what the community comes back and agrees with. I think there are issues around community safety and tension when it comes to animals as well. I don't know if other councillors have seen it as often as I had, or got the same sort of feedback around barking dogs and also dog poo on the streets and people not cleaning up themselves. This is all actually a bigger part of what I thought my role as a councillor would be in terms of the correspondence I've received, and it's important. So this is a very incredibly important document, the Domestic Animal Management Plan, for a variety of reasons. Obviously, people are passionate about animals, whether they're their own animals or other animals in the community, and we need to be able to manage that effectively, and I'm happy to support putting this out for community consultation to see what the community feels at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sypek.
Yes, Mayor. Well, I'd like to speak on behalf of the cats of Moonee Valley. They seem to get a bit of a rough run all the time, being blamed for, killing wildlife and species. But around where I live around near Rose Hill Park, and I can tell you, every morning there's 1 or 2 foxes that are walking around everywhere, and I think they are the real culprits of some of the species that have been killed in the area. But like Councillor Jones said, I was mowing my lawn this morning, and I happened to come across a couple of 2 or 3 presents left on my lawn that I had to clean up as well. So, like Councillor Jones, I think dog droppings and dog barking, they're the main complaints that I also get. I don't think I've ever had a complaint about a cat being out at night. It's usually mainly dogs and dog droppings.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? I think I detected dissent. Councillor Isa, would you like a right of reply? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next report is item 9.5, endorsement of a professional competition for the design of Queen's Park West Playground. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is shown on the screen. Do I have a motion? Councillor Samantha Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to change point A to read endorse the standard concept design approach as used for previous Moonee Valley playgrounds, to renew and then continue reading as per the officer's recommendation, and B to remain the same.
Sorry, Councillor Samantha Byrne, could you read that?
Do you want the
part
whole,
C?
the whole? You want the whole thing?
Yeah. I'll just
the
part C. I
council-
wasn't. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
So I've just got the council resolves to A, endorse the standard concept design approach, brackets, as used for previous Moonee Valley playgrounds, close brackets, to renew the Queen's Park West playground located within Queen's Park and request concept designs for an anticipated maximum construction cost of $800,000, brackets excluding GST, and B, note that the construction of the Queen's Park West playground is currently scheduled for renewal in the 2026-27 financial year, and construction costs will be referred to the budget process for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sypek. Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm really excited. I quite like playgrounds, and I quite like the idea that we want to upgrade the Queen's Park West playground. And I think that it will be a fabulous outcome regardless of how we decide to get there. The Rose Hill playground that's recently been completed has been an absolute hit, and if you haven't been down there, I thoroughly recommend doing it. Now, this project has already had quite a lot of consultation that's occurred, and we've got some really good feedback from the community in regards to what they want to see in this playground. And what this report is asking for us to do is to do something slightly different, which, look, I can't, I understand why we would maybe want to do something different, but I just don't think we need to. I think our council does playgrounds really well when we do them. I wish we did lots more, but for the ones that we've done recently, I know AJ Davis, I know Rose Hill, they've been so popular. I just don't know why we need to be spending extra money on changing something that's just not broken. I do have an additional, there is in the pack, there is a further amendment that could say that the redirected funds saved could be put into additional infrastructure at the Queen's Park West playground and cafe area. I haven't put that in there because I don't want that to be the controversial part for people not to support this, but it obviously could be moved as a further amendment should other councillors wish. I just think that I'm so proud of our playgrounds and how far we've come with them over the years, and I think that we've already spoken tonight about budget implications on certain things, and I just don't think that doing this will necessarily create anything better than what we have currently been doing. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. Councillor Sypek, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I tend to agree with 90% of what Councillor Byrne said, and that's the reason why I've seconded it. I too think that our officers do a magnificent job doing playgrounds. Why change it? I mean, if you're building a Rolls Royce, why go and do something completely different? You know, if you're building the best you can, that's fantastic. For me, I reckon rather than running a competition and spending all this money on this kind of stuff, put it up on our webpage and saying, if anyone's got any ideas or they'd like to see something, this concept, please email the Mayor, and the Mayor will collaborate all this information, and then we can make an informed decision what the community wants. How much is it going to cost for people to send you an email, Mayor? I think that's a simpler and easier way than running a competition and spending money where we could use that money and do another playground somewhere, a small pocket playground. I don't know, it just makes logical sense to me.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm inclined to not support this. I quite like the officer's recommendation that proposes we use a public design competition to design this the Queen's Park West playground. There is an additional cost which requires consideration, and I'm satisfied that it's not something we're doing just for the sake of doing it. I think, as Councillor Samantha Byrne spoke to earlier, we've got this amazing international exhibition in Moonee Valley at the moment. It's the first time it's ever been in the Southern Hemisphere, called the Playground Project, and it's had a huge amount of interest from right across the city. We've had, I think it's RMIT who are doing design talks there with their students. It's really quite exciting, and this is a unique opportunity to leverage off what's going on in Moonee Valley to, I think, get potentially a much more exciting, better outcome than we would if we went with our stock standard approach. I'm not saying that we should do this going forward for all playgrounds, but I think we're in a really unique position and have this great opportunity to do something exciting and to, in our kind of premier park, our flagship park our kind of botanical park in Moonee Valley, in Moonee Ponds, I just think it would be an opportunity missed, and I think it's one worth taking. I did kind of question how long does a playground last, if you were wondering. Apparently it's about 20 to 30 years. Every 20 to 30 years we redo playgrounds, so it's not something that, I don't think it's money that would be frittered away if we get a better outcome. It's something that will be around for a few decades, and that, you know, many, many children and grandparents will get to enjoy, and it's such a, it's the playground in Queen's Park, for anyone following along, next to the cafe. So it's like, you know, in Moonee Ponds, that's one of the busiest playgrounds we've got. Everyone's there all the time. It'd be a great addition, I think, to have something really landmark and, so I would, foreshadow, should this amendment not go through, I'd foreshadow the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Phil Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't be supporting the amendment. I firstly just want to acknowledge everyone who's taken the time to put their thoughts on a new playground into the process already. I would certainly, although echo Councillor Samantha Byrne's view and Councillor Sypek's view on the playgrounds that we do. They are excellent, the most recent ones. I feel a bit ripped off seeing what the kids get to play on these days compared to what we had. Bit of treated pine and a tyre if we were lucky, and that was it. And I agree with the excellent officers and the work that they do. And I just note that it's those very officers that are suggesting a different approach with Queen's Park. Queen's Park is an incredibly significant piece of open space. It's pretty special to our first people. Fresh water was used by travellers to the goldfields in the 1850s. Many of the tree specimens in Queen's Park were sent by Baron Ferdinand von Mueller from Botanical Gardens fame. The overnight resting place for Burke and Wills on their ill-fated stroll around Australia. It's got the War Memorial, the pool that hosts our key festivals. It's got the lake, the cottage, the extensive gardens, identified in our own open space plan as regional open space. It's pretty much the jewel in our crown, really. And I think that a design competition provides an excellent opportunity to get and to really see what the playground designers out there, what they can come up with, what their various creative skills can come back to us with. And I know, we've got a process around the playgrounds, and we are diverting from that process, and it doesn't have to be broken to move away from that. I think we should try things a little bit differently from time to time. there's nothing wrong or broken with the horse, but something better came along for us to move around, and the same with Nokia phones and everything else. So I'm really interested to see what a potential design competition would come up with for this pretty unique piece of open space. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you,
Mayor,
Councillor
point of
Brown.
clarification.
Yes.
How much will this competition cost?
CEO?
Director Service Delivery, are you able to provide a response? Thank you.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor. It's contained in the council report at $75,000.
Thank you, Director of Services Delivery.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Sure, Councillor.
Could we please have I think the report has that it's $75,000, but compared to what the standard process is?
CEO?
Direct Service Delivery, not sure whether you have the response on hand.
I don't have that specifically to this project on hand, so we'll have to take that on notice and get back to you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Philburn, have you finished? You finished your... Yep, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be supporting this motion, and I won't be supporting the foreshadowed motion should this one not get up either. No one's doubting that Queen's Park is iconic. It's got an iconic history, and it is an iconic destination, one of Victoria's oldest parks, renamed in 1897 to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. The Essendon Baseball Club at one stage played there. It's had tennis courts in the past. It currently now has one of the region's oldest bowls clubs, the swimming pool, the bocce courts. It's got 2 playgrounds there already. Some of the big feedback from the community has been that they want the cafe to reopen because they like the cafe there. In reading some of the feedback we've already had from the community, I'm personally not seeing a huge need or want from the community for a bigger playground that's currently there. They want a community space where they can come and connect with families and have those groups. It's more the adults that want the space to bring their children, and that's how I'm reading it. And also, there's one thing that stands out for me in the report, the fact that we can replace a like-for-like off-the-shelf playground at $400,000. So half the price means that there's more money that can be allocated for other playgrounds at other facilities across the municipality. And I think that given that I couldn't see any overwhelming feedback in the stuff that's come back in consultation for anything larger than it is, because there's already interest in using the space for other reasons, just the open space and the paths for bikes and trikes and scooters and everything, I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Isa?
Thanks, Mayor. I disagree with Councillor Jones's interpretation of the consultation report. My interpretation of the report was that there were 150 or so families that responded really excited about the potential improvement to the space. Certainly there were some comments around other elements of the park that are much loved, including the cafe that we're all hoping reopens soon, if it's still not open. But I sensed I'm just trying to find whether there was a specific question that said, do you think the existing playground is satisfactory? And I'm not sure there was a question of that or the equivalent, but there were certainly pages of ideas for renewal and pages of lists of things that people would like to see at the park. I'm glad that the officer's recommendation has been foreshadowed, because I do support the interesting approach that officers are proposing, and hence this report, to engage playground designers in a competition, in a design competition for Queen's Park. I think that's a really quite a smart and cost-effective way of receiving, potentially, if it works, and we're taking a bit of a leap of faith here, and I think it's a park that's worthy of that taking that approach. Potentially, really engaging professional playground designers in some innovative thinking that then comes our way, and that is a cost-effective approach from our perspective in terms of generating some ideas that we otherwise might not be able to generate. So I don't think there are many other parks in the municipality that we could do this for. I think being the central park of the municipality with all of the historic elements that both Councillor Jones and Councillor Phil Burns spoke to, I think it's quite a unique park and lends itself to a design approach that tries to mix First Nations, natural, with more contemporary approaches as well. So as I say, I'm not, this is a first, or I think it's first for myself and the current council. I'm happy to take that leap of faith to see how it goes. I don't think $75,000 is too much above what it would cost in terms of design work ordinarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Samantha Byrne, would you like a right of reply?
Thank you for the debate around the table. Just $75,000, like, we don't have like a lot of surplus funds that we can just use on things that I just don't think we need to do. But obviously there's an appetite. I feel that there seems to be an appetite to spend it now. I get that it's not like there would be a cost to do the normal process, but this very clearly says that these costs are higher than the normal concept design development process. $75,000 to run a competition that we don't need in the stage of where we're at with the council at the moment, it just makes me feel a little bit queasy. But we will see how the vote goes and then see how this project progresses. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Samantha Byrne. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Barnes, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Sypek. All those against? Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Isa, Councillor Jones, Councillor Adams, Councillor Theocharides. I declare that motion lost. Councillor Cosgrove, you foreshadowed a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move the
What's your
officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgrove. Do I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Phil Byrne. Councillor Cosgrove, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will just briefly. I guess it is a question of whether whether it warrants the additional cost, and the estimates that were sort of given to us in briefing were that typically this process costs about $50,000. To do it via this competition would be $75,000, which is $25,000 extra dollars. It's not nothing.
Just a point of clarification, Mayor. Where did you get the $50,000? I didn't read that in the report anywhere.
Sorry, point of order, Mayor. A person can't be interrupted while speaking for a point of clarification. The councillor needs to wait until the councillor has finished speaking.
Sorry, my apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Cosgrove, please continue.
Yes. So, sorry, Mayor, I'm a bit thrown.
I think we'll move adjournment. We'll go to an adjournment and be back in 6 minutes at 8:15 p.m. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, from our short adjournment. We were considering report item 9.5, endorsement of a professional competition for the design of Queen's Park West Playground. Councillor Cosgriff has moved the officer's recommendation and you had the call, so please continue.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to start by withdrawing my previous reference to the value of playground consultation. I was mistaken in doing that. In terms of the officer's recommendation, I do think it's a really, I think it's good value for money. There's, have the opportunity to get experts or architectural experts from who knows where, all across Australia hopefully, but to garner, leverage the interest we have in the playground project that's going on in Moonee Valley at the moment. And the officers have sort of put this forward with the view that there's an appetite for this, and I think it could be a really good outcome for the community, and it's an opportunity that it would be a shame to miss. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cosgriff. Councillor Phil Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only briefly, Mayor. I think that the debate on the previous motion was pretty good and pretty detailed, and I do appreciate the fact that we do look at numbers like the 75,000 pretty closely. But I guess for my point, when I see that, and similar to Councillor Cosgriff's point just before, is that when you look at the value of what you can potentially get from that 75,000 for a site like this undergoing a design competition, we can get that creative input, and compared that to the standard tender process, I think you have the potential to get a lot more value out of that for council. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phil Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? If not, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Phil Byrne, Councillor Cosgriff, Councillor Isa, Councillor Theocrides, Councillor Adams. All those against? Councillor Barnes, Councillor Samantha Byrne, Councillor Jones, Councillor Sypek. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, item 10 on the agenda is notices of motion, and we have none listed on tonight's agenda. So we will move on to item 11, urgent business. Councillors, do we have any urgent business? If not, we will move on to item 12, confidential reports. And we have no confidential items listed on the agenda this evening. So therefore, that concludes the business on tonight's agenda. Thank you to all those watching. I declare this meeting closed at 8:20 p.m. Thank you.